How's that? Hopefully you can hear me now. Apologies, everybody. Hopefully you can now hear me. Shout if you can hear me. I'm afraid that the first 2 minutes of that verdict will now be yielded completely redundant and useless. But hopefully you can all hear me now. In which case, hello, welcome to Ewood Park. Norwich City have drawn 1-1 here with Blackburn this afternoon. It's a frustrating result. It's one that if wins against Watford and Cardiff are intoxicating reminders of what this Norwich City side can do, then today was a reminder and a visible reminder of maybe the frailties that they have and the difficulties that they have, particularly on their travels and on the road here in the Championship. Crucially, it's not one that's bursted their momentum, I don't think, or will have hampered what they have built over the last few weeks. But it is one that I think people will come away feeling a huge amount of frustration with, and inevitably so, really, because the way that the game transpired, the way that Norwich performed, it wasn't at the level that we've become accustomed to. And actually, I think it shows why Norwich City are where they are in the table, because you get games like this and opportunities like this, and they're not quite able to convert them in the way that you would expect. David Wagner, I've done all this already, but David Wagner made 3 changes. My fault, sorry. David Wagner made 3 changes. Dimi Yanulis came in for Sam McCallum. Ben Gibson returned from injury, and he came in at centre-back. And Christian Fassnacht was rewarded for his goal-scoring form over those 2 Carrow Road games, and he was enabled to start ahead of Onel Hernandez. And all of that meant that Norwich had a bit more control of the ball. They had Nunez in a midfield position alongside Kenny McLean. Both of those really drove attacks forward and drove Norwich City forward at points during that first half. But they just lacked the attacking verve, the creativity, the exhilarating kind of multi-dimensional kind of attacking elements that we saw in those 2 victories at Carrow that enabled them to score 8 goals. And that, to be fair, is a credit to Blackburn, who I felt really nullified some of their threats. Borja Sainz didn't really get into this contest throughout the whole thing. Josh Sargent was off colour, and I think everyone will forgive him for that. But equally, I just felt they weren't able to convert what was, certainly in that first period, control into chances and into real tangible opportunities. And I think that will be a frustration for everybody involved. There was a couple. Sargent had one where he was played through, but passes were either hit or they weren't sticking, or they weren't quite able to play through Blackburn, who I felt actually got the press wrong once in the first half, but beyond that, pressed really efficiently and actually pressed in a way that I think was the best that I've seen against Norwich for a period of time, actually, in terms of the way they pressed and how they did it. They limited Norwich City opportunities to try and bait them, really, and to try and then open up space in behind. They didn't really do that this afternoon, which will have come, I think, as a little bit of a frustration to Norwich. But again, the real frustration will be the second half, which, as we've seen, really, patterns, particularly away from home, when they're faced with it wasn't necessarily a block, because I felt actually that Blackburn got a lot closer to them, and but it was just an inability, really, to seize the moment, to convert, as I said, possession into chances. And I think there will be a real frustration that they haven't been able to put a defence which is the second leakiest in the Championship under more pressure than what they have done this afternoon, and that is probably the reason why people are leaving so frustrated. David Wagner was pleased with the performance. I felt Norwich was slightly off the pace today. That being said, Norwich being off the pace a few months ago would have meant that they lost this game, and they didn't. Let's go through the goals. So Norwich opened the scoring. Kenny McLean again drove forward, broke lines, brilliant run forward, gets fouled on the edge of the box. I need to see it back. It did look a foul in real time, to be honest, but whether the benefit of replays will change that. Nunez steps up, and initially I was thinking it's too central, it's too close, and actually just to have the delicacy of touch, really. It didn't require power or pace. It just required gracefulness, really, and quality and technical elegance. And we saw him kind of stand idly by as Gabriel Sara took that free kick last weekend. He stepped up, and it was a gorgeous free kick. The curl, the execution, Ainsley Pearce in Blackburn's goal was just a spectator like the rest of us, really. And it felt like, to be honest, a game that needed a moment like that to open it up a little bit. And from there, as I said, Norwich then, for the majority of the first half, had control, had space, were knocking the ball around really, really nicely, and crucially were frustrating this crowd. And it's not been a happy place to watch football, Ewood Park, and there's loads of reasons that would require a longer video than the one that I'm doing, and one that's a lot more Blackburn focused. But there are calls against the ownership. There's frustration here with the internal workings and some of the politics around some of the decisions that have been made at this club or haven't been made. So that, with that in mind, and with the way it turned, there was a toxicity growing. I don't think it was quite there and simmering to the surface, but it was definitely present. And Norwich had a real opportunity in the second half just to seize on that, and they didn't. And what really happened was Blackburn got a little bit closer to them. They pushed their kind of lines up, their starting lines up. What was a low block at times became more of a mid block. They found a little bit more space between Norwich City's lines. They isolated their attacking players pretty well, actually. And I felt it was almost a blueprint in terms of how to deal with Norwich from an attacking perspective. And I felt maybe they probably lacked a little bit of thrust, actually, in that second half, a little bit of momentum in terms of someone who could carry the ball forward and provide that impetus that maybe someone like Onel Hernandez has done in recent weeks. They weren't able to progress the ball in the way that maybe someone like Ashley Barnes has done in recent weeks. And they had an opportunity to find an extra gear and push the accelerator down. They were just unable to do that. They just did not find that extra gear, and they did not find that moment of quality, and they didn't have the quality really to be ruthless in the final third. I mean, they've ended this game with fewer shots than Blackburn and fewer shots on target than Blackburn. Doesn't tell the whole story, but I think it does go to show maybe the frustration that I certainly feel stood here today, that they weren't able to affect that game from an attacking perspective more than they did. And even the changes that they made, and obviously some of them were enforced. Nunez had a little bit of a knock. Grant Hanley indicated that he wanted to come off. I think Dimi Yanulis had the same at left back, and we know that Wagner likes to change those as well. And they'd already introduced Ashley Barnes, and I felt that it was a game where Norwich weren't quite at it, and that's going to happen, and it's inevitable, really. I think the frustration is that they got themselves in such a position. This is a little bit different to QPR, because at QPR they fell behind, but obviously then they did get themselves in front and fell behind again. This was one where they were in front. They did have the control. They did have the momentum, and what they maybe didn't do was defend a set piece well enough, and they didn't quite stand up to the inevitable Blackburn rise that came after the first half. And I mean, the goal's so frustrating. Dimi Yanulis gets caught on the left side. It's a cross that's allowed to come in that really should never be allowed to come in. It's a bit messy, sort of the build up to the corner. It's swung in, and Don Hyam has the run on Jack Stacey, I think, to then plant the header in. And actually, you look in the first half, even for Norwich's control, I felt that Blackburn probably had the better opportunities, and Angus Gunn was definitely the busier goalkeeper. There was a trio of really good saves from Sam Gallagher. One close range again from a corner, which he nodded down, and Gunn produced an excellent save. There was then one where Pickering found Gallagher in behind. He just got a run on Hanley and tried to squeeze it in at the near post and didn't quite have the space to do that. And then one sort of just before half time where there was a cross from the left which Gallagher met with his head, and Gunn had to produce another really excellent save. And in the second half as well, there was Gunn had to make another good. I can't remember the incident, but he had to make another good save to prevent it. And in really the closest Norwich came in the second half. There was one moment where, three moments really. There was one where just early on in the first half where Gabriel Sara clipped the ball in behind for Christian Fashnacht. He tried to take the ball around Pearce, who did very well actually to get his foot there and win the ball and hook the clearance away. Then there was one where McLean tried to slide Sargent through, and the pass just had too much on it. Pearce was quick off his line and was able to clear. So that was another attacking moment that Norwich City had. And then the final one really was a free kick from Gabriel Sara from the left, which was curled in. And Grant Hanley was at the back post and just got underneath the ball really and was unable to kind of steer it on target. So those were the moments that Norwich City had in this contest. And again, that will be the real frustration, I think, that they were unable to, having been 1-0 up, having been in control of this contest, to actually go and kill it off. And I think that's a problem, certainly, that we've seen. And you look at their away record now, it's 17 points from 17. It's 4 wins on the road all season for a side that's gunning for the playoffs. And actually, you think about all of the issues that they've corrected over the course of the season. They were too open in transition. They solved it. They were shipping too many goals. They solved it. Then they lost a little bit of attacking impetus. They looked to have solved that in recent weeks. But actually, the away form is the one thing that so far they've been unable to shift, unable to turn, and unable to really try and turn it around. And if you can do that, and you can do that between now and the end of the season and maintain the run of form that they're on, that will put them in a really good position to be in the top 6. And I don't think, whatever happened here today, it does ultimately feel like 2 points dropped, I think, rather than a point gained from Norwich City's perspective. It doesn't decide anything, and actually, all it does do, really, I'm sure, is the Coventry guys and Mark Robbins and his team and the fans, they'll be breathing a huge sigh of relief when they saw this result pop up on the video printer. And likewise, Hull, they'll be feeling a huge amount of relief that they've still got a 3-point cushion after dropping points at home to West Brom today. And that is really where the frustration is, because Norwich knew kind of the way the land laid going into this game. And a win wouldn't have pushed them into the top 6. It would have put them 1 point behind, but it would have really, really increased the pressure on Hull and West Brom. And look, it doesn't decide the race, and it doesn't mean that the top 6 is off or on or anything like that. But at some point, they are going to have to make that step and make that point. And again, I think that was the feeling a little bit after QPR. And look, Norwich could go and beat Sunderland at Carrow Road next weekend. They could go and beat Middlesbrough in that midweek game. And suddenly, this point in hindsight then looks significantly better than it does tonight. But I think that context is going to take a little bit of a while, and obviously results as well to come through. So it is frustration, and it is maybe a feeling that Norwich City weren't quite able to back up what they've done after what was a really good week at Carrow Road. And for me, I think it does show an element of the fact that there is a little bit of trust still that needs to come back from this Norwich side. I felt throughout the game that Grant Hanley looked a little bit, I don't want to say shaky. He's come back from a long-term injury. There's inevitably going to be a period of building up, but I felt for him he was uncharacteristically kind of caught in behind quite a lot, and a few of those were offsides. But the Gallagher won in the first half. Schmodek's got away in the second. Gallagher got away for a crossing opportunity that Gunn had to come out and claim. It just felt like it was a little bit too simple, and for a player who has done so well in terms of his pace and whatnot, that felt a little bit concerning. And actually, I thought the midfield mix was better from Norwich today, certainly in terms of that first half spell. And that's what Nunez gives you. He's suited to certain games, I think, but it's no coincidence that since he's been in the team, Norwich have had and looked a little bit better in possession. But that counts for nothing if you can't then go and create opportunities. So yeah, look, I think there's no reason to panic. It's not a momentum killer. It's nothing like that. It's a point on the road. In the Championship, they are always welcome. Even if it does in the glaring light of night now, a couple of hours after the full-time whistle, feel like points drop. So yeah, it is what it is. It's not ideal, but has the pitch changed drastically? No, it hasn't. Which again, I recognise from Norwich perspective is frustrating, because they could have been the big winners of this weekend, but equally, it's still entirely possible and entirely on. But we are going to need to see an improved level of performance than what we saw today, because this was Norwich City not at the best and not at the levels that we've seen in recent weeks. And there's an inevitability about that. But now they do need to find some performances in terms of the next two, which I'll level with you folks. I've been looking at this Sunderland Middlesbrough doubleheader for a little while, with a little bit of concern, but I hope that Norwich City can find results, because this wasn't their best day. Credit to Blackburn, who I thought were well organised. I thought they showed character. I thought they were tactically pretty good, and as I said, I thought they did well in terms of their press and limiting Norwich. But I think ultimately it's a day that Norwich will reflect on with disappointment. That's it from Ewood Park. Apologies for the technical issues at the start of the video. I do this live. It happens. I think this is the first time it's happened this season, barring a couple of dodgy Wi-Fi connections. So, hey ho, it is what it is. And I feel like I've been spinning about 100 plates today, but we've got there in the end. Long trip back to Norfolk. I'm looking forward to hitting the pillow, I think. Thank you very much for watching. Plenty more over at pinken.com. We'll see you soon.